But you were going to turn 40 someday and you were going to turn 50 someday, even if you didn't have your son. And it's like, there's always somebody younger. There's always somebody hotter. There's always somebody smarter. There's always somebody cool. And you just got to stay in your lane and put your flag in the ground and be like, this is where I'm going to live. This is it.
Before we get started this episode, I wanted to highlight this awesome podcast called the Go Diaper Free podcast. It's hosted by Andrea Olson and Nicole Cheever, and it's about elimination communication. Have you heard about this, Kayce? Because I feel like you might be into this type of alternative potty training.
The depths of my alternative algorithm Instagram. So it's an infant potty hygiene, and you can have your baby go to the bathroom as early as birth. So you're essentially potty training them from birth. So it might sound a little out there to some people, but babies do have a natural instinct to potty and to keep themselves clean.
Right. I remember specifically the first time I heard about it, same thing on Instagram. God, the information we get there. But I did think it was really cool. And like when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, but it's just a weird concept to think about this little tiny baby going on the potty.
But it's an industry. I mean, how much money do you spend on diapers and wipes and diaper cream and potty training? I mean, it's a business.
Yeah. So the Go Diaper Free podcast gives you all these different tips and tricks about it, helps you troubleshoot so that you can respond to babies' needs and change fewer diapers. I just think it's interesting to even listen to just gain a different perspective on the whole thing. So it's the world's first official elimination communication podcast. It's solely dedicated to this. They cover any and all types of things around it. If it's totally new to you, and just a few episodes that would be great for starting points. They told us that episode 232 is for beginners and episode 88 is about at what age can I potty train my child. So make sure you check those episodes to get started. So just go search Go Diaper Free podcast in your podcast player and subscribe. And Kayce, you'll have to keep us posted on whether Miss Hosmer is getting potty trained right from the get-go.
Maybe I'll just do both of them at one time.
There we go.
When I got to Boston and I was working with Nessun, I loved it. First of all, let me say, working in Boston, those 3 years were the best 3 years ever. I think the group of women that I met there who were in sports, 12 out of 10. I mean, girls propped each other up. Some of them I invited to my wedding, like life.
I was going to say,
friends.
I remember meeting a bunch of these girls at your wedding and they're amazing.
Yes.
I made myself a Bostonite at your wedding. I was like, I'm hanging at this table.
You literally were with all the Boston people. But I remember there was another Kayce across town. And it's so funny because we never met while we were there. But Kayce and I were also both like creatures of the night. So we would go into work. Like, what time would you go to work, Kayce? I would go in at like 2 o'clock, 3 p.m. and be there until 2 a.m.
Exactly. I would go in around 3 and then our show ended at midnight. So it was like, I was like kind of walking out of the studio, like, can I go get a glass of wine somewhere at 1 a.m.? I mean, that's just like the way it was.
Because Boston closes down at 2. So there were 2 Kayces in town, other sides of town, competing sports networks, but there was never any like rivalry. There was never anything weird. We just didn't see each other because we really didn't have lives outside of being on TV.
And you guys, I was always jealous of the Nessun girls because like you guys had like a whole group of you guys that worked for Nessun, and I was with, at the time, it was Comcast Sports New England. While I was there, it switched over to NBC Sports Boston, and it was mostly men. And every single person on the show with me, which was a 3-hour show every night, was a dude. And so like I didn't have like that like camaraderie with any of the girls like you did. And so like if I saw any of the other Nessun girls out, it would be like randomly in Southie on like Saturdays and Sundays at brunch. Like I didn't get the opportunity because I worked 9 to 12 every night. So I was always very jealous of you guys.
Well, I was never allowed out of the playpen, I would say. I was in studio, which you were in studio a lot, but the girls, like, I mean, Courtney, Rachel, like they got to go, Meredith, they got to go to the Patriots practices and they got to go to the Garden all the time. But I mean, listen, being in Boston when Kayce and I were in Boston was sick because I don't know what years you were there because Dave poached you, I think, while I was still there.
Yeah, he poached me in 2017. I didn't actually leave
Dave
my
Portnoy,
job.
For those
Dave
who
Portnoy
don't
with
know.
Barstool.
Yes.
Let me also just say this is Kayce Smith, the queen of Barstool Sports.
We just got right into it.
Yeah, we got right into it. We're not, you guys know who she is. That's why you're not dumb. I mean, everyone knows who Kayce is. So
I don't know about that, but thank you.
But you were there. I mean, when I was there was 1 World Series and 2 Patriots Super Bowls. You were there for all of those.
I was actually only working in Boston as like on Boston TV for a year and a half. He poached me in 2017, but I didn't leave until 2018 because I was in the middle of a contract. But I kept my apartment in Boston until 2021. Now I was in an ex-relationship, and so that was kind of a messy situation. But I mean, I was at the World Series when they won, so I had it for a lot longer than I actually lived there. But that's why I love Boston. I claim Boston as like my sports town love because I grew up loving college football in Texas, and that's all we cared about. I didn't know professional sports until I moved to Boston.
So were you like a sad Dallas fan, or you just really didn't care? Because college filled your cup.
College filled our cup. And like my dad is from Texas. He went to Texas A&M. I'm the oldest daughter and I love sports. Shocking. I know that's a spoiler alert on this show. I only cared about what my dad cared about. And that was Texas A&M football. And like we went to Rangers games and Cowboys games and Mavs games. And I was just like, okay, I'm a sports girl. I love this. Yeah. I didn't actually care about any of it. I only cared about the Aggies until I moved to the East Coast. And so that's why I'm now like, Boston, my teams. Sorry. Like I'm from Texas, but I'm a Celtics fan. Get over it.
Do you have brothers?
I don't. It's just me and my younger sister. And when I tell you, my sister and I look almost identical, especially when we're not wearing makeup. You guys know how that goes. Like if you're not wearing makeup, like your true like genetic features come out. Yeah. We could not be more opposite. She does not care at all about sports.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like doesn't care to follow it. Like we got actually in like Kayce, you'll laugh at this because you're a baseball girl. Like she did not understand the difference between Major League Baseball World Series and when A&M played in the College World Series just like a month ago. She was like, I don't understand. I was just at the World Series.
Like, didn't we just have one this year?
Literally, no. She literally said that. And I was just like, how? Like, I'm in my 30s. She's in her 30s. But so like my dad just hoped that one of us like sports and he got his sports girl, the first one. And then my sister was like, whatever, I'll just go play with dolls. And so that's being a boy mom was kind of like built into my genetics there.
Who was more excited when you found out that you're having a son, your dad or you?
Yeah, really.
You know what? Honestly, it was definitely me, and my boyfriend and I both like, we just felt like our son was going to be a son the entire time. Like, I don't know if I was just like putting it out there in the universe, like praying to God, like, please. It was almost like when I told my parents, they didn't know what to do because they wanted boys and had two girls. And so they were like, how do we react? Like, thank God.
They're like, this can't be real. They're like, go get another blood test. Like, this can't be true. We only make girls in this family.
Oh, my dad like pulled out a baseball glove that was like, oh, I can give this to him. And I was just like, Dad, like, let's make sure. Cute. But no, it's very, very cute. And I know I've told both of you guys like off air, I wanted a son because I don't know what I would do with a girl. So, you know, right now.
Yeah, but I'm listening to your story. Like,
you're
are
so
the son
girly
of the
though.
Family. Like you are the
you are the son, but you are still very girly.
Sports oriented, like all that. You know, I think like really it could be anything because I've heard women that say like, oh my God, if I have a boy, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Like I want to dress up my girl, blah, blah, blah. But it's so fun to dress up boys too. Fun. And like to get them like, and they have their own style and they get excited about what to wear. Like you really can implement those things. You could have a girl that's like a total tomboy and doesn't want to wear any dresses or any skirts or anything like that. Like you really never know. You can have the experience with both. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was me. And like the only reason I was ever like even remotely girly when I was younger was because my mom would still like make sure that I stayed a little bit girly. Like I didn't know how to do my own ponytail. I'm not kidding until like middle school. Like
I see your mom as like the mom in She's the Man with Amanda Bynes.
She was
like buying the debutante dresses.
Yeah. She was just like, you know, like she never like made sure like I was always just like, I want to go outside. I want to play. I love football, whatever. And then she'd be like, well, let's put a cute outfit on. I'd be like, okay. And then as I got older, I was like, oh, I want to be in TV. I'm going to have to learn how to do makeup. I'm going to have to learn how to do hair, which I'm still not great at, which is why you have professional hair and makeup artists. So like, I always say like and Kayce gave me my new makeup artist in Chicago.
She's the best.
Teresa is the absolute best. And I tell her, I'm like, thank you for you because you make me just a little bit more girly on TV.
Person too. She's like she's also a therapist too. And
oh, she is. She's
not
the best.
licensed.
I feel like you have to be as hair and makeup. You have to like have a therapist degree as well.
Yes.
What was it like for you then, like transitioning into the sports world? Did you feel like you became like a sexual object?
It's such a good question. And I know that like every female is going to have like a different answer. I didn't feel like that until I got to Barstool. Now, that's not a Barstool thing by any stretch of the imagination. That's because Barstool's audience is so much bigger than anything that I was used to. Like I noticed that more when I was at ESPN, and when I was at NBC Sports, and I did a little stint with Fox as well, that I was on national TV and on a national network and did a lot of great things. But it was more of just like, well, she's just a female. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Like, she's just a young blonde. I mean, younger at the time, obviously. But it was more of like diminishing what I knew. I didn't necessarily feel like a sexual object until I got a much bigger platform and a much bigger audience. And it honestly, like, I knew that that was happening. I didn't really realize how strong it was until I announced that I was pregnant, which is a very fascinating thing, because the amount of men that came out of the woodworks that were like, well, say goodbye to that body that we've been watching on, on Barstool for so long or on TV. And it's like, oh, so you really have only been seeing me that way. To be honest, it never bothered me as much. It was more of like, people would say, well, you're a blonde female. What do you know about football? That was way more prevalent from the time I was a student broadcaster, But yeah, like as soon as I got pregnant, I lost, and this is not a joke, I lost 60,000 Instagram followers within 2 weeks of announcing I was pregnant. 60,000.
Get out.
Swear. Like I was like,
what are your demographics? Do you know? Do you ever look at it? Like, do you know what percent followers are male?
93% of my Instagram still to this day are male. And I was getting close to like a certain platform, like a certain mark that I had been like looking towards. I was getting close to like 500,000, and I was so happy. And then all of a sudden it like got lower and lower, and I was like, this is odd. And it just immediately, and it was like, at first it was kind of saddening, because I was like, I'm not posting about my relationships, which I never have. I'm not posting like, here's week 6, here's week 7. I'm not doing any of that. But it was the idea that this woman, whoever it may be, whether it's me or somebody else,
or you were,
exactly. And so I was like, all right, see ya. Like, I had to learn really quickly. Like, if those people don't want to follow me through real life, then like, I don't care if they follow me.
And how many of those 60,000 are like grandfathers and dads and uncles and like
I would die. Like, imagine
I would guess like 75% of them like have a loving relationship with a child. Like in some capacity. And it's like, or some of them are like 13 years old and they're like, oh, she's old. Like,
she's
it's like, okay,
fat.
all right, like, go on TikTok. Like, that's fine. Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
so I love how,
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I love how you even told your audience. You wrote a letter to them, which is like, you connect with them on such a level that's like, you felt it was more than just like doing a post, which by the way, probably wouldn't have played well anyway with the like, look at me, congratulations. Because they would have just SHIT all over it anyway.
Yes.
So like, tell me about that decision for you.
So the cool thing about Barstool, and obviously, like I've said, and anybody who's followed me or knows my background at all, like being in network TV, which I have, like my best friend Laura Rutledge is still with ESPN. Like, she's phenomenal. Like, the thing about network TV that for me was that I never felt that I could truly be my authentic self, because like, I swear like a sailor, I love to drink, I love to give my opinion, for better or worse. And that's what Barstool really offered me. And so when Dave hired me in 2017, he was like, hey, we're going to start our college football coverage, and I want you to like help lead this. And it was a dream come true, because I was like, wow, I get to be myself.
Yeah.
And I get to do what I love to do, which is host a football TV show.
I want to interject really quick, because when I was stalking you pre-interview just to like, gather some information, I can literally see the demarcation in your Instagram of when you joined Barstool, because I swear you just exuded a different glow about you for exactly what you said. I was scrolling through and I was like, oh, she's allowed to be her true self at Barstool. Yeah. And that's a really cool thing.
It is. And I know people like roll their eyes when they hear that, but it is so true, because I remember I posted a photo, and I don't know if I reposted it. I know our former CEO, Erica Nardini, posted it at some point, but I had a photo taken when I worked at ESPN where I had like eye black on and like red lipstick. And I'm not kidding. It was from my collarbone up. And it was like, I don't want to say seductive face, but it was like, kind of just like maybe a blue steel type look, but it was sexy, right? ESPN took the photo. I posted it on Twitter and Instagram, and within like an hour, my agent at the time called me and said, hey, ESPN's really mad that you posted this photo. They think that it sends the wrong message. And I was like, it's my face? And they're like, but it's like the implications. And then I get to Barstool and they're like, do what you want to do. And so, especially because it was, I was single, I was in New York City, and I was like, I can be me. And you're on, at the time we had a Sirius XM radio show. So I'm on radio talking about things that aren't sports. So to like get back to your original question, which I'm like talking around, but it was basically like I got to go and like show people who I really was, my personality into my life to a certain degree. And so when it came time to have to say like, hey, by the way, for the last 4 years that I've been working here, 5 years at that, 5 years. Like I have said, I never want kids. I've been very adamant about how I'm always going to be the cool aunt. Like I'm never going to be a family person. I'm having a baby and I'm really happy about it. And I didn't really know how that would go over, but I talked with Dave and I talked with Dan Katz of Big Cat of Pardon My Take. And they both were like, share it in your words, blog it, and just get it out there. Because if you don't, it'll eat you alive. Because I tried to hide it for a long time from our audience. Yeah. And we were going into football season and I was like sick of wearing like baggy t-shirts that I had to like keep going like this. And they both were like, just do it and do it in the way you talk to the audience forever. So I did.
I want to go back to
because people would take that experience away from you anyway. Like people, it doesn't matter. It's like you wear a baggy t-shirt on a random day. They're like, is she pregnant? Is she pregnant? Is she pregnant? It's just ridiculous.
I would be like bloated and people would say, is she pregnant? Yeah. Like I would wear like the wrong dress and people would say, are you pregnant?
Our audience is very into our lives, which is a great thing. But as a female whose body is physically changing every single day and we are on air every single day to a certain degree, it's like, how much longer can I hide that my like ass is getting so much bigger and that my boobs are out of control? Like how much longer can I hide?
Your boobs look great though. I mean, they still do. But I want to go back to what you said about Gianna when you said like the veil was taken off her Instagram, because I remember when I was in college, I was doing an interview at a station in Philadelphia. And the news director said to me, he said, well, you know, like there are some tenured reporters and anchors here who have Googled you and there are bikini pictures on Google. So they're not going to be happy if I hire you. It was not Fox. It was not where I ended up working. But like that was the climate, to Kayce's point, that would have been in 2012, 2011. Wow. So that would have been the climate then. And then I remember in 2013, I was working with Fox in Philly. I was a traffic girl. And Dave had me come to cover the lacrosse, like men's lacrosse championship at Foxborough. And I was like in the crowd in the parking lot interviewing people. And I didn't want to curse. And I was so afraid. I was a year into TV, still didn't know who I am. Gianna and I talk all the time about like, I didn't know who I was at 22 years old, at 23 years old. I just thought, oh my God, maybe someday like I could be on Good Morning America. Like that's all we thought. Or maybe like there was only one microphone and Erin Andrews had it on the sidelines. Like that was it. Right. That was it. There weren't that many spots. So you wanted to fit in this box. And I remember Dave was like loosen up, relax. Like, and I was like, oh, we're here. Like just such a dork. And it was like, and I get that point so much of like finally being yourself. And I feel like now motherhood forces you to figure out who you are. And it's like, you can't hold any punches anymore because there is just, the floodgates are open. I mean, I don't know if I'm talking about pelvic floor therapy or if I'm talking about mentally, but like it's all open. It's all open now.
Everything is wide open at this point. No, I was listening, Gianna, to the latest episode that you guys put out, which by the way, like happy 1 year.
We love you so much because you really are like the Mother Up stand from day one.
I love it. Like I was so excited when you guys launched this and I have not missed an episode. I love it. But Gianna, you were talking about how you like over the when you were in Florida, how like your regiment kind of got like thrown out of whack. And I feel like as like a mother, like when you first find out you're pregnant to when you're, obviously postpartum, like you forget how important those little tiny things are to keep you sane until it like snowballs out of control. And that's something that I still have to work on. Like I went to Texas for a couple weeks to see my family, obviously took my son, and like 10 days in, my mom was like, I know this is going to sound weird, but like, you don't seem yourself. Have you been able to work out since you've been home? And I realized like I hadn't even gone outside to like walk. And I'm so used to living in Manhattan, just getting that walking and realizing like
you
as a
think
mom,
about it.
You have to prioritize that stuff about yourself or you lose yourself completely. And if you lose yourself completely, you realize who you really were. And that's something that like took me a long time to realize. So I totally resonated with that. It's like when your routine gets thrown off as a mother, you can't just like wake up one day and be like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go to the gym for 5 hours today. You've got to figure out how to get back on track while taking care of your baby.
I want to jump into I want to stick with that mom guilt. So you are the host of a college football show. You don't get to do it from that chair that you're sitting in right now. I mean, you are traveling the country with the guys every single weekend. And it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not one day. Like you're not one day trip. Like these are sleepover trips. Like you're getting in, you're prepping, you're talking to teams, yeah.
So again, this is one of those Barstool perks because, Dave Portnoy is Dave Portnoy. Like we fly private. So I call it Air Portnoy, which is so nice. Like we fly private everywhere. So yeah, so it is like, it used to be, we would stay a lot longer because we were like trying to like immerse ourselves. And it was also before, Dave has Miss Peaches, that's his only child, but like the rest of us that are on the show.
Love her, adore her.
She's such a
his adopted dog. For anybody that doesn't know, please go look her up on Instagram. You will thank us later.
He posted that he's trying to get another one.
First time I found the Instagram, I was on it for hours. She's adorable. His commentary is hysterical. People get so into it in the comments. It's amazing.
Oh no, she's millions of dollars. She's like much smaller than she looks on Instagram. Like she's just, she's amazing. With that being said, he's the only non-human father on the show that I do. It's with Dan Katz and Brandon Walker. They both have like 4 and 3 kids respectively. Yeah. So like a few years ago it was easier to travel. And I remember them saying to me when I got pregnant, they were like, this is going to be much harder for you than it is for us. And as a woman who was pregnant with my first child, I was offended almost. And I never get offended with these guys. If I got offended, I wouldn't last, 2 days at Barstool. But I was like, what do you mean? You guys do it. And they were 100% right. Because even getting on that airplane and knowing that it could be day in, day out, it could be, one night, it could be whatever. It was like the mom guilt is so different. And I can't speak for all men, but I know that they say like, of course we miss our kids. Yeah. And we don't have that biological feeling that we have to be with them at all times. Yeah. I do. So last year he was, my son was, he was born in February. So he was still so brand new. Yeah. I was able to feel a little bit differently because I was like, he doesn't know this upcoming fall is going to be very hard.
I was wondering that.
Because he's going to know that I'm gone
as he gets
more.
Older. Yeah.
So that's going to be tough, but it's so true. Women just naturally, biologically have that mom guilt built into you. Like, okay, well, this is my career. I don't want to give it up. And also like I work with all men that they're not going to understand that I really want to go FaceTime my son on the bus before we go live on TV.
So
let's talk about that for a second. I was going to say, you work with all men. Like, how did you feel their support was? Like, what did you feel from Dave? Were you like terrified to tell Dave that you were pregnant? Were you nervous about how he would react to the whole thing, or that like it would change your status in the office? What was that all like?
It's a great question because a lot of people have opinions of what Barstool looks like, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody's like, oh, well, misogynistic, whatever. The cool part of like the timing that I came into Barstool, we were obviously a big company. We had they had relocated to New York, but we were still much smaller than we are now. Like we're massive now. And 2020 really helped build that out where we just, tons of people now. We have 2 headquarters, whatever. I came in at a time where it was still like we were 1 floor. We were like all family. And so I never felt like I couldn't tell people at work what was going on. The bigger part was how do we tell the audience? The difference too for me is that we have a ton of female talent, right? Like Chicks in the Office. We've got Brianna Chicken Fry. We've got all these like massive female personalities. I'm really the only one that's been there for that long that does sports. Like we've got some gambling girls now that are phenomenal, but I've been the female in sports.
Yeah, you are the nucleus for sure.
These are my like brothers. These are my best friends. These are my friends. And so telling Dave was super easy. It was more like, okay, now what do we do? And like,
what were you afraid of? What were you afraid of telling the fans? What was your deepest, darkest, biggest fear? What was the worst thing that was going to happen?
And now that I say this out loud with a 17-month-old, like I want to go back and slap myself then because it's like so judgmental of myself. But it kind of goes along with what I was saying that the audience, like some of the audience said, it was like, I'm not going to be like if you find me attractive, I'm not going to be the attractive, in air quotes, younger, fun personality anymore. Like I'm a mom. And that to me scared me because I was never wanting to be a mom, not because I was like anti-kid. It was more like, that's just not my personality. So I think I was most scared of saying like, I'm going to lose the intrigue of the audience because I have been so private with who I've dated, when I've dated, if I've been in a serious relationship or not, that I kind of portrayed myself. And I hate to say it now, but it's like the single pick-me girl, not realizing that I was doing that, but it was because it was an identity that I thought.
Well, because like that's what played with the audience. Yeah.
And like that's my personality. Yeah. Like my personality is like hanging out with dudes, talking about football. And like I never needed to say who I was dating.
And you do want, there is, whether you admit it or not, I feel like there's maybe even a small percentage of you that like you want to be likable. Like you want people to like you and be like, oh my God, that girl's so dope. I want to follow her. I want to listen to everything she says.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I feel like a lot of times you figure that out as you get older and you're able to admit it. Like, of course, everybody wants to be liked to certain degrees. Like there are some people that like live for that. And some people who say, I don't really care. But in some form or fashion, especially if you're in the public eye, like you do want to be liked. But what I learned along the way was, and I'm going to sound like, you know, an athlete right now, but it's like, you know, people don't boo nobodies. Like the apathy is what you don't want. And so I learned very quickly, like if people love me or people hate me, they're still paying attention to what I'm doing to a certain degree. So when I decided like, okay, I'm going to announce I'm pregnant, and I got over like the aspect of my body's going to change. And then I realized I was like, who cares if people don't think I'm hot anymore? Who cares if people are like, oh my God, she's a mom. Yeah, guess what? I am a mom and my body does look different. So deal with it. This is my life. And that to me, I like, once I realized that I was okay with that, I was like, that fear was so stupid. And the guys were so great about that.
But you were going to turn 40 someday, and you were going to turn 50 someday, even if you didn't have your son. And it's like, there's always somebody younger. There's always somebody hotter. There's always somebody smarter. There's always somebody cool. And you just got to stay in your lane and put your flag in the ground and be like, this is where I'm going to live. This is it.
And that's why Barstool's been so great, because we've all kind of grown up together. And like, I've not been there since they started, obviously, and I wasn't there in Milton. But like when you really put your foot down into your lane at Barstool and you do a good job and advertisers like you, and you know, like that to me, like I feel so safe there. And that's the biggest misconception. I think people are coming more around on it now.
No, they think that Dave has you in like a dog crate in the basement.
Like that, like, oh my God, like, and if you don't say anything nice about him, like, he's going to fire you. Like, no, like, that's just not
I can't believe he let you out for this interview. That was so nice of him.
Can you believe he let
Miss Peaches does not go in a crate. Kayce, she's crate. She's in a crate.
Like he like I laughed when people were like, oh, well, see you later, Kayce, you're pregnant. Dave's gonna get rid of you. I'm like, that's just not how he is. Like he, you know, that to me is like just a very like tunnel vision that people want to have on Barstool. But I feel the safest in my position anywhere I've ever been, because Dave's like, that's whatever, awesome. Like, you know us. Like, I can't imagine throwing like a random woman in broadcast on TV with these morons now. Like, I've been babysitting grown men for over 6 years. So like that, I do feel safe, but
you're overqualified to be a mom.
For you.
Yes, like I was surprised at so we travel, and then we also do in studio shows, and I also do an NFL show as well that I did with Deion Sanders for a while. So like my world was like thrown upside down. I'm pregnant and I'm traveling all over the place, and like Deion at one point was like, just so you know, I want everybody to hear, like, she's pregnant doing this. Like, this is badass. And then like the next show that was like literally after that, they all came out with like a big baby basket. And like the picture that I have from it is so funny, because you can just see like, you know, Brandon and Dan, and they're all like used to having babies. Like Dave's just sitting in the side, like he doesn't know how to handle it. Because he's just like, but I'm here. Exactly. But it was really cool, because it was like, this is how we've grown up. You know, thinking that like girls can't be pregnant, girls can't be moms and be on TV, or at least that's the way I felt. Right. And then I'm like, well, my own co-hosts are doing this. So it really was nice to know that. Although looking back, and I'm sure you guys feel this way, looking back at photos, like now when I was super, super pregnant on air, I'm like, how was I even remotely comfortable? Like I was like just so big and uncomfortable. And I'm like trying to like smile through talking about like week 4 of the NFL. Like, how did I do that?
Yeah, but I felt so much less guilt. I'm already pre-tense for when this baby comes, for feeling the guilt of not being with her when I'm doing things. Like, I love being pregnant because I don't feel bad not thinking about the baby, if that makes sense.
No, I guess like I only have one. I know you, like Gianna, you have 2, and Kayce, you're about to have 2. The biggest thing that I have said, like when I was pregnant, because I didn't already have a child, was it was all about me. Like, taking care, like physically taking care of like the growing baby inside of me. But like I could nap when I wanted. I could do this. Like the idea of having
those first pregnancy naps.
And people are a little bit more like willing to accept that. Instead of just like, it's like, I'm pregnant, I need to take a nap. Instead of, I'm a mom, I've just been like beat to hell all morning, I need to take a mom. That's all of a sudden weakness.
They're like, you're
whereas
lazy.
Taking nap during pregnancy is like, oh, you're doing the right thing for your baby.
But like as soon as it turns into eyeball today, Kayce, take it easy.
As soon as it turns into trying to take care of yourself, it's like, well, it's over. Get up. You gotta
get over it. Like we don't need like, and I felt that way. And I had my baby in a hospital in Manhattan, and they took great care of me, and like our doctors were amazing. But I even noticed that change, and so did my boyfriend. That was like, as soon as you leave the labor and delivery floor and you go to the postpartum floor, it's almost immediate. They're like, they treat you like, you know, the Queen of England upstairs. And then as soon as that baby's out, they're like, I don't know, go into the bathroom and figure it out yourself. I'm like, the last 9 months, I have been the Queen of England. Why are you guys making me figure this out on my own?
Oh my God. I remember I called for a binky like 6 times and I delivered at Brigham and Women's and it was unbelievable. But like on recovery, I called for a binky like 6 times. She's like, I'm busy. You can come down and get it. I was like,
oh yeah,
Christ.
okay.
I was like, I want to go back to labor and delivery.
I know, like when you're pregnant, like I know for me, like pregnant walking in the streets, it's like, oh, get out of the way. Again, like please take care of her. And then it's like you're walking with a stroller and they'll open the door for the stroller and let it like hit you in the shoulder. And I'm like, I'm still caring for this human being here.
That's actually the truest point. Like when you're pregnant, you are like this flower, this delicate flower that everyone wants to protect. And then you have a baby and they're like, did you shower?
So I've definitely been in my feels lately, and it makes me really happy that I have a therapist that I know and love and trust, because I just can't imagine going through life without a therapist at this point. You actually had me laughing so hard, Kayce. I was listening to one of our episodes and you reference your therapy.
Therapy, it's the plural of therapist. I made it up and it sticks. So I have 3 currently.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shame in our game. We think that therapy and mental health services are so important. So grateful that BetterHelp is a sponsor of the show. We want to make sure that you and our audience has access to it as well. All you have to do is go to betterhelp.com/motherup and you can get access to licensed therapists who are trained to listen and give you that helpful, unbiased advice. I mean, I know that you have us, but unfortunately we can't directly talk to you through the podcast, but you go to their site, you answer a few questions, and they match you to somebody who has years of experience, who is helping people just like you in a way that fits you. So whether it's somebody that is faith-based, or if you prefer a certain gender, I mean, they really get specific in how they can select a therapist for you. You do it all from your phone or computer, video calls, phone calls, messaging,
and
however you feel
demand.
the most comfortable. You'll be matched with somebody usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast for those issues that really just can't wait. So thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp. Let them connect you to a therapist who could support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/motherup and enjoy a discount of 10% off of your first month on us.
Here's what I want to know. When women have mom guilt because they want to go get their nails done, or they want to get lunch with their girlfriends, or they need to get their hair colored because we have our grays coming in.
Yes.
Take everyone through your schedule once hits the fan and football season starts, and tell everyone what your life is going to look like and how much you need to rely on your partner and your extended safety net to care for your son.
I mean, I have a whole new respect for working moms in general, because I never realized, again, because I never processed it, what that would look like. I have to say this, if you're listening and you're a 9-to-5 mother, I want to give you the most kudos ever, because the fact that I have a flexible-ish schedule for part of the year.
Yeah.
I realize if I had to be at work every single day and then come home and be a wife and a mother or a partner, I think I would go nuts. And so women who can do that are superheroes. My thing is, once college football starts through the Super Bowl, since I do both college and NFL, I am full steam ahead. I'm traveling, I'm prepping. I have to make sure I have my hair done, my nails done, because it is part of my job, and it is go.
Yeah.
But then after it, I get to take a break. So I think that's what really helps fuel me is for this amount of time, I have to be full into my job as much as I can. Now, of course, as moms, you're never fully mentally anywhere but with your child. That's just a fact, no matter how much you need to turn it off. And then I get that time to where I can be with my son more. So I think that helps a lot. But my schedule is crazy. Once a week, I have to go to Chicago, stay overnight, come back to New York, then travel for the weekends. So having a partner that is willing to work with me on that is phenomenal. And then also having the help that you have to have. I mean, if you don't have, I hate using the term village because I don't think villages exist half the time, but having people that you trust, that to me has been huge, and letting go of that guilt. I remember my psychiatrist told me this, and I know both of you are girly girls, and so you're going to understand this. I remember I was 3 months postpartum and I hadn't gotten my nails done, but I had gotten my nails done 2 days before I went into labor. So they are disgusting. They're barely hanging on. Right.
Yeah.
And I would cry because I was I just want to get my nails done, but that is so stupid. And he told me, he was because you can physically look down at your hands and see how you've not had any you time, that's why it means so much to you.
Wow.
And so I realized, I was like, women in general think, okay, my job, my baby, my partner, they forget themselves. And so going into the fall, I remember like getting my nails done is not just part of my job, it's part of what makes me feel like me. So if I don't do that, I can physically be reminded I've put myself last. And so that's something that I have to work on in my busiest time. So, I know. Right. I was like, sir, you don't get paid enough, because you're so right.
But then we squawk because we're like, oh my God, we have to sit here for 2 hours and I can't even like order my Amazon on my phone. And like, so we're never happy.
But there are some people that are like, why do you feel like you need to get your nails done? Okay, well, maybe that's not the thing for you. You know, like for them, it's going to yoga every day. Like I don't go to yoga. For me, it's like this other thing. Like everybody has their own thing. So like that's where it comes in, is that people judge you for certain things. And like we as moms do it. Like moms judge other moms. And that's the worst
1,000%.
thing. It's like, why can't we just get on the same page and say, my self-care may look different than your self-care. And we just need to give each other the space to do whatever it is that we need to do.
Judgmental moms in that space to me are the worst kind, because everybody knows like I am a workout person, not necessarily because I want to like look my best, which is obviously part of that, but also like I go crazy. Like I mentioned earlier, like my own mother was like, honey, like please go out for like a run or something, because like I was acting like a crazy person.
Well, do you just get like pent up energy? Like, is it a release for you? Like you just are alone with your thoughts?
And it's also just like, I think that because I grew up, I mean, playing sports and doing all those things, like it's like my mental health truly does rely on at least some sort of physical activity. And also like, I mean, and you guys have talked about this in the podcast a million times. It's like the pressure you feel to like have to bounce back, which is just impossible. Like, I feel like it's like, there's no right or wrong answer. Yeah. That's also part of self-care, because your brain has to bounce back. And like, I don't mean to get all like philosophical here, but like if your brain doesn't bounce back to where you kind of feel like nothing else is going to fall in line. So like the nails thing was like, not even like I need my nails done to look better. It was more of like, I can physically see how long it's been since I've had an hour to myself where I can do something that makes me feel better. And going
and it becomes suffocating.
Yes. Yeah. And like, you can't like, it's literally, I'm looking at it. And that was something that my psychiatrist really helped, where he was like, yeah, you know, your body's not where you want it to be. And you know, that can come like every single day you look down at your baby, you see your nails and you realize I haven't had time for myself. So whatever that looks like for any type of woman, it's like, we're all battling that. So going into this fall, it's like the mom guilt is so loud for me right now. I mean, it's incredible, because I know he's going to know I'm gone. How do I prioritize myself for that when I am with him, I'm the best mom possible? Because if I'm not, then I'm not good for either one of us.
You started this by saying you were envious of Kayce and like that girl gang that she had back in Boston. And obviously we've talked this whole interview about the guys that you've been surrounded with at Barstool and just the nature of your work. Do you feel like you had women or other moms that you've been able to talk about these things like the nails with? Because I can't imagine, even though the guys that you're alongside are fathers, like that just isn't going to compute in the means of like, I'm a mom, you're a dad. Yeah, but we have totally different experiences in what's going on right now.
Totally. Like so most of my closest girlfriends live all over the country, because I you know, I was born and raised in Texas, went to college in Texas, then moved to the East Coast and have been in New York forever. And a lot of my best friends are going through this, just like the two of you. Like you guys went through this kind of change of life together, but they're not here. And I had a lot of friends who moved from the city after COVID who were just like, we're getting the hell out of here, which makes sense. And then most of my girlfriends here are still single or still in relationships without kids. So I, you know, for better or worse, you know, went through a gigantic kind of purge of friends, not by my own accord sometimes. Some of them were for sure. Some of them I needed to. But just because like once you become a mom, your life completely changes. So Kayce and I really reconnected. Again, like we used to talk all the time on social media, and then we reconnected when I got pregnant because she reached out to me. And I remember so many of those postpartum nights, like messaging her and voice recording to her, because I was like, I need somebody to listen to me that gets it.
Yeah,
but it's true. It's like you reconnect with people, like just connecting with you made me realize like I can now kind of find new friends who are going through this process. And that to me was really important, because like, I think I thought I'd never have friends again. Like, oh my God, all my friends are gone. And the ones that are here live in Texas or California. What am I going to do? And you just learn, like, thank God for technology. Like, that's how you reconnect.
It is really hard. And I don't know, you know, being two TV girls, I've gotten accustomed to the village, if you will, being a satellite village, and one village member being in California and one being in Texas and one being, kind of everywhere. And I do rely on phone calls or voice messages and that kind of stuff, as opposed to that physical one-to-one in-person time, which does wear on you a little bit. So I don't know if I've just kind of shut down that necessity that I've had. How do you feel about that? Like, do you have go-to girlfriends in the city? Like, your sister's not there. It's like, do you have go-to girlfriends where you're like, I just need you to come over. I need you to like sit on my couch and I need to have wine. Like, I never had that luxury.
No, I honestly, and this is where I feel like I also kind of self-isolate as a mom, and I'm sure you felt the same way, where it's like, I am sure that if I text some of my girlfriends that live in the city right now and said, hey, I need you, come over, they would. But none of them, to me, I felt close enough, especially in those early postpartum days where I felt like I could do that. And so like, I have a lot of like casual friends in the city. You know how New York works. It's like, oh, let's like head to a wine bar, and then you might not see them for a couple months. My closest people, like my true like village, they are all satellite. Like you said, I mean, my best friend lives in Connecticut, and then my other best friend lives in Texas. And so I feel like I became really dependent on my phone during those times, and it felt very lonely. And then I kind of came out of it a little bit. I was like, was that a little self-isolating? Like, was that a little like guilt of being like a new mom and not letting yourself be taken care of? And I think I was really guilty of that. Like, I let myself be alone when I didn't necessarily have to, and I wanted to. So it was like a balance of like, do I let people come help me? Well, no, they're not close enough to me, so I'm not going to let them. I think if I did it again, I would allow those people to help me if I needed it.
And then there's that voice of almost punishing yourself. Like, really? You can't figure it out? You can't find the strength to pull yourself out of this? Like, get a grip. What do you have? Look around you. Like, what do you have? We always say that. It's like, what do you have to be so upset about? Like, your life really sucks that much?
Oh my God. And especially whenever you start getting the guilt of people, and I've said guilt a million times, but that's what it is to be a mom, especially a mom of younger kids. Like, of all the people who can't have kids, and like, do you realize what we would give up? And it's like, oh my God, I don't know. Like, I never wanted to be a mom, and now I am. And it's the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me. And I still want to be me. And I remember, so my son was born in February, St. Patrick's Day, obviously like a month and a half later ish. And from my building, I can see down onto Madison Avenue. And I remember on St. Patrick's Day, holding my tiny little newborn and looking down and seeing everybody going out, and everybody's in all their green and
you told
Guinness,
me this. I remember this.
I remember texting you, being like, I'm never going to be allowed out again. What have I done? And just like that horrible feeling of like myself is gone. And then also, Kayce, what are you talking about? Like, you want to go out and chug Guinness today? Like, grow up. You're a mom now. And finding that balance. And then when St. Patrick's Day came back around this year, I was like, I don't really want to go out for St. Patrick's Day. And I like had a girlfriend over for some wine, like on the roof. And then like she went home, and I was like, oh, that was lovely. It's like, you fight that.
And I remember I texted you and I said, it is so hard to admit and it's so hard to say, but how old were you when you had your son?
33.
Okay, so I was 32. Career women, self-sufficient. Like, I've got my car, I've got my apartment, I've got my hair, my makeup. Like, this is my life. Like, this is these are the parameters. This is like where I live. And then you're responsible for another human being, and you shed that personality and that character that you built up. Like, you're writing this script for who this person is, and then you're crumbling it up and throwing it in the trash. And I said to you, you will mourn the loss of your freedom, of your ability to go down and not drink one Guinness, drink 10 Guinness, and then go take a giant nap and then order pizza and watch Friends for the rest of the night and fall asleep on the couch. Like, you can't do that anymore. And yes, you're taking on those responsibilities. And this feels like the dumbest thing to say ever, because it's like, yeah, obviously, Kayce, like, you had a child, you have to keep them alive. But there is that mourning and that loss of your solitude, of your just being self-sufficient and being able to do what you want when you want.
1000%. And they don't like talk to you about that before. And I know that sounds like, so like, I feel like sometimes when I say that, it's a cop out, because, of course, like, you have to go through experiences no matter what they are to know what they feel like yourself. But whether you wanted to be a mom of 10 children or you never wanted to be a mom, and you have, I know you want like a million kids. I never thought I wanted one. Here we are. We're both mothers. Like, you have to learn how to realize that, just like in relationships, in work, in life, like, those chapters do look different, except for this time you have a human being you have to take care of. And it will get easier in different aspects. It'll get harder. Like now my son wants to jump off the top of the couch all the time. Now my son
I got a bloody nose today because I got headbutted. Like now
Exactly.
they are in the phase of like, how can I try to kill myself and my parents?
And I'm just like, sir, what are you doing? Like, no. And like, my son loves repeating no. So I'll be like, no. And he'll go, no, no, no. And then proceed to do it. And I also have a little bit more freedom because I know that I can send him out with like who takes care of him and his nanny and say, hey, you guys are going to have a great time today. He doesn't need to be literally on my chest all day, every day to stay alive. And so
even though something as dumb as like getting ready to go to dinner and like you're in the bathroom and he's in there, he's not like pulling himself up on drawers and going to fall and crack his head open. Like he's moving around, you know, it's a different phase. I want to talk to you because this is really weird. I definitely had postpartum depression for sure. Was totally in denial about it. You know, again, I'm fine. I'm a really mentally tough person. I've got this. It's great. It's fine. It's whatever. It took me a long time to connect to Jack. It took me a while to really, I always loved him. I always cared about him. There was never any moment of self-harm or harm. There's nothing like that. But it took me a long time to really feel connected to him. Like, you know, I've heard like, oh, when I saw their face and, you know, in the delivery room and I just knew and it was love at first sight. Like, yes, I love my child with all my fiber of my being, but it took a long time. I don't like the newborn phase. And I'm already pre-worried for when this little girl comes of just being like, oh, I don't like this phase because I think it's I don't know if it's a Leo thing, but I like reciprocity. Like I need you to let me know that you like me back. So now when my son like kisses me and says, I love you, I'm like, oh yeah, he loves me. Like I got this.
So you told me that this was going to happen when I was going through it. And not that I didn't believe you or anybody else that told me, but like, again, you have to go through the experience yourself. I remember asking you, I can't even tell you what the question was, but it was just something like that was like my everyday life. And you were like, I had to go back and ask Eric because I don't remember. And in that moment, I was like, I'm going to remember every single detail about this. Like what are these people talking about?
Yeah.
I don't remember so much of it because I was so disconnected from my own body half the time. Like it's a fever dream. Like I don't have any memory other than the photos and what my partner tells me happened in the delivery room. I remember like times and that's it. I don't remember how I felt when they handed me my son. I don't remember how it felt bringing him home. I don't remember any of that because like my brain just wasn't connecting to itself. So I know that I know I told you this story. Like we had a night nurse lined up and I told her never to come. I was like, don't come. I don't want you in my apartment. Yeah. And for whatever reason, like I now look back, I'm like, what was that reason? I couldn't tell you, but that was my instinct. And so I did those nights. We did those nights. That connection really helped me to connect to him, but myself, I can't even like, I feel like it took me 4 months to remember that I was an actual human being.
Oh yeah.
Like
100%.
Showering. Oh my God. Like now when I'm in the shower, I'm like, remember those times that you felt like you would never shower again and you had to have like 2 seconds just to like wash your hair as fast as possible. And it's like, now I'm like, you know, at the gym, like, washing my hair.
Having
like,
a spa day.
Yeah. I'm like, but you don't remember that, especially with your first one. So I do, you know, and I can't talk from experience of having another one, obviously, but I have had so many girlfriends say like, you put so much less pressure on yourself the second one because you know kind of like how to keep a human alive that you realize you were so hard on yourself the first time. I don't plan on ever figuring that out. I really think I'm going to have an only child and
you think you're one and done.
I do. I think I'm one and done. And not because I didn't love, you know, having him and doing that, but just like, I am such like I'm a Scorpio. I'm not a big astrology person, but I know that I've been told that means I'm a little selfish. I don't know if that's the case or not.
I'm married to a Scorpio. So yeah, any insight you want to give me about your kind.
To me, it's like, I want my attention. Like I love the idea that my son is an extension of me and that, you know, if it's just me and him, like I only have to worry about him. And when he goes down at night, that's all I have to worry about. And maybe that's part of me where it's like, okay, like now I get to take care of myself. And again, those chapters change. But for me, it's like, I think that all the love that I have to give as a mother is to one, that if I was to have another, that I wouldn't know how to split that time. And I know people probably feel that way and then change their mind. But for me, it's like, I know that every ounce of being that I am is for this child. Yeah. I love my career. If I try to add more, it's going to be adding to my plate that I can't handle.
And with your son, he wasn't planned. He wasn't expected. You know, you said you didn't want kids. So it's like the beauty of it is, my aunt always says it, it's like life is like a tapestry. It looks a mess on the back and then you flip it over and you figure it out. And it's whatever will be, will be. And, you know, maybe this will change 1 year, 2 years, 10 years from now.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of motherhood and it being a journey and you figuring it out. And you don't have to have it all figured out. That's the best part. Like, just enjoy the ride. It's crazy and miserable at sometimes, but
oh my God.
you said that you weren't connected to your body. And I think that's such a cool way of saying it, and such a, oh, duh, that's exactly what I was feeling, because you finally have your body back. Like, it's yours again. There's no tenant in the apartment anymore. But like you said, it's like kind of like this when you get it back, and just kind of like you're trying to untangle everything and figure out what was there before and what's new and what's different. But I just remember, like, I think back to when Jack was born, and I think back, like, we were living in Boston and it was fall and the leaves and Halloween, and like thinking back, it was so magical. And looking at all the pictures of Jack, like, it was so magical. But I'm remembering like the fights Eric and I would have, and the exhaustion and the not knowing, and he's crying and what do we do, and how do we do it, and just being at each other's throats for much of the time. And those like things that creep in, like, are we gonna make it, and like these extremes that you drag yourself to in your mind. And it's just like, the negative self-talk was the worst thing for me. The negative self-talk, the extremes, the catastrophizing, the mind reading, like, those were the things that kept me up at night and caused so much anxiety for me.
No, you're 100% right, because like you put it perfectly. Like, you don't have a tenant in your body anymore, but it's like if the tenant moved out and is still using all your utilities, right?
And they
like,
spray painted the walls, and like there's a hole in the ceiling.
Exactly. Like, they've completely like destroyed the inside of the apartment. And by the way, your internet and your water and your electricity, like, they're still using it because, you know, whether you breastfeed or not, like, I breastfed for 4.5 months. If I could go back, I wouldn't breastfeed for that long, because I ended up learning that I had anxiety connected to breastfeeding, which, like, again, like, these are things that who knew. And then while you're going through that, your hormones are trying to regulate, your body is not feeling right. So of course the negative self-talk is going to come in there, because like, you're not worried about at night, like sleeping on your stomach by accident. You're worried about like, oh my God, what if I don't eat enough today to be able to feed this tiny human that can only eat what's coming from my body? And then you get the guilt of like, well, if I've switched to formula and he's allergic, and you're just
there was still a formula shortage when you had him, right?
So it
was like the tail end of it.
And I never experienced any of it, because I went straight to, and like, I know it's like no free ads. Like, I went straight to Bobby formula whenever I got off of breastfeeding, because my pediatrician in New York is actually on the research team for Bobby. Okay. So like, I felt like that was like great for me, but I never even took that into consideration, which now looking back, I probably should have. But I produced so much milk that I felt guilty about not wanting to breastfeed for as long, because it was like when I tell you, I went to Borum Care, which was like a postnatal
retreat
in the
I remember.
city.
It's amazing.
Phenomenal. Like, and I know everybody that sees it online is like, oh, it's like a 5-star hotel. Yes, but I did not use, like, and even if you do use all of those things, like, to me, it was like having somebody to help my body heal, teaching me and my boyfriend how to take care of a baby. But when I was there, they were shocked at how much milk I was producing in like the fridge. And so I was like, well, I have no option. I have to breastfeed my son because I have so much. And I didn't even take into consideration what the opposite would have looked like, what the alternatives looked like. And that ended up giving me so much more postpartum anxiety that I didn't even realize. And once he switched to formula, I was like, oh my God, like, this is so much easier for me. Why did I put myself through that? Because I thought I had to. And your brain just tells you what to think and what to do. And then afterwards you're like, why was my brain lying to me like that?
I don't know the answer to that. That's why we're not licensed, but it is definitely a thing. I remember I had a lactation specialist come to the house right after, because I did want to try to breastfeed. And I know there's so many positives to it and antibodies, and we were heading into cold and flu season. And my aunts both breastfed their 4 kids. My mom never breastfed. It wasn't for her. She's like, she didn't like it. And she said that. She's like, try it. I'm here for you on your journey. Like, I'll come, I'll watch Jack do your class. But she's like, I don't know if it's for you. And I was like, I really want to try it. So I did the class with the girl, and it was great. And I had my pump, and I found myself like not wanting to pump because like I didn't want there to be a supply. There's just so much self-sabotage that you do for no reason. And you don't even know like why you did it in the first place. And you're like, So I bought the pump and tried it, but I wasn't producing a lot. But I know in my mind, I wasn't pumping every 3 hours like I was supposed to, but I was eating the lactation cookies because they were good. But then I was sad when there was only 3 ounces. And then I just gave him the Similac anyway. So it's kind of just
It's a complete shit show. And I bought a pump because that's what I thought I was supposed to do.
Right.
And then I realized that I was.
How much crap did you buy that you never used?
Kayce, I thought about this the other day, that if I could like go into his nursery, still to this day, he's 17 months old, and find the newborn stuff that's still in boxes, like shoved in the back of the closet, because you go through a period where you're like, just give me as much as possible. And then you don't want anything. And then the amount of Amazon returns, like I remember when he was switching to solids, my friend told me to get this like machine that steams the vegetables and it purees. And I got it and I was like, who am I kidding? I'm not going to be doing this every single day.
Yeah.
And I took it right back to Whole Foods and sent it back to Amazon, because you buy all these things that you're supposed to. You're given things you're supposed to. And like I maybe pumped in the 5 months that 4.5, I maybe pumped like a total of 10 times, because my supply was like oversupply, where it was like, I was just like I knew that I didn't have to. And I was like, I don't need a year-long supply. And I look back, I'm like, well, I guess I could have. But I just was like squirting milk all over all the time. And it was like, why would I pump when I can just like catch, like those little hakas that would like just stick on you?
Yes.
I would just walk around topless and like I would yell at my boyfriend, like, give me the other haka. Like,
Oh my
like,
God.
please, because I was just, and that to me was a sign like, well, a lot of women want to breastfeed, can't.
Right.
So you should. And it's like, no, that every woman has the choice there. It was really good for my son. And my God, did it give me anxiety. Like I remember like laying on his floor, like breastfeeding from the side, crying and like trying to like, keep myself alive, but he's eating. And so I'm like, look at this gorgeous little baby. I hate every single part of the way I feel, but I love him. And that's just something that you have to go through, I guess. But I did not like the newborn stage either. Like I loved him and loved how cute he was.
Yeah.
And I see women walk around with their newborns and I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. I'm like, I love this phase so much better.
I agree with you.
I feel like I don't have to sacrifice like the way I'm feeling all the time, which is the way I felt as a newborn mom, but that's what everybody has to do in order to have this cute little toddler who's a terrorist half the time.
They're kind of terrorist, but they really are so fun. Like to have a conversation with Jack is so cool. Like I was like, what's your favorite color, green or blue? He's like, blue. Like, that's cool. Like, you're a human. This is, I
haven't gotten like, I don't want to wish away phases, because I really do. Like, I know that like eventually,
you
like
better
when
be
I come
enjoying
home
it. It goes in a
right. And I also hate that, like the better wait, like you better wait until this. I'm like, okay, no, like let me enjoy the phase just like you did.
Right.
So my son can't do full sentences yet, but he has learned so many words. And the newest one, which as a boy mom, as a sports mom, I love it. He's learned basketball is backy. So he always wants to play backy. And so we bought this like, where you can like remove the backboard and we hang it from different places in the apartment. And he wakes up and he's like, backy. And I get so excited because I'm like, he wants to play basketball with me. Like, so like, I love that feeling where he's like telling me what he wants, telling me how he wants to do it. And like, I didn't know what he wanted when he was like younger. Like I knew what he could give me via like crying. But now I'm like, no, this man wants to play basketball. We're playing basketball. Like,
and like
what we're
he
doing.
loves you for playing with him. It's like maybe it's a reciprocity thing. And I don't know if it's because we're in the communication business that this is our love language. Like that's why I always say like my love language is like hold my hand and tell me I'm pretty. Like that's all that I need. That's all that I need.
I just need the validation from people. And like I used to, and going back to what we talked about earlier, like I used to think that I didn't need validation. Then I realized like I needed validation from strangers. Like I don't care, I like F those strangers. Like, I don't think I can say the F word on this podcast like I can on Barstool. So good for me for censoring. Now I need that validation from the people that I love. And I don't think that's a bad thing as a mom. Like, I know that there's probably a fine line and that my therapist and psychiatrist would say, okay, there's a certain level where you have to be, fine with yourself. And I agree with that. But having that validation from my son, who I love more than anything on the planet, that's all I need. So like when I get like, hate comments or whatever, I'm like, okay, well, my son wants to play backy with me. Okay. So like, he is happy that I'm playing basketball with him. Like, I don't care what you have to say. That's something that I've really learned throughout this process, as far as like, screw everybody else. Like the people who love me give me that validation. And like, I can't wait till he can tell me that I look pretty, you know, like those are things that I think are okay.
I'm blown away. I think everything you said hits home. I think people are going to be raving about this episode. I think people are going to want you to come back on. Absolutely. I know that I want you to come back on. We appreciate you so much. Is there anything else that you think needs to be said to the people listening at home?
Well, you guys do. And this is going to sound like I'm just totally like, sugaring this entire podcast, but it's true. You guys do such a good job of like being real, because I do think that there's such a lack of communication and of not even just like storytelling, but just like information out there of like really truly living this day to day. And I think a lot of women forget. And I just want to remind everybody and remind myself and remind you and Gianna, like, you are allowed to feel two things at once. You're allowed to love your children, your child with everything that you have, and say, this is really hard. This is really, really tough. And I don't feel good today, because I don't feel like there's a space for a lot of people to do that. Now, what I'm learning, and I'll continue to learn, especially as he gets more mobile and more talkative and all that, it's like, I'm still a human being that's allowed to take care of myself and feel like myself. And that, in order to do that, makes me a better mother. So if you're listening out there and you're feeling like you've lost yourself, find yourself, however that looks, whether it's through a career, whether it's through a hobby, through just like, I don't know, getting a new hair color, whatever that may look like. Because people don't, like, they do not tell you you're allowed to do that. You're either a mother or you're not, or you're a career woman or you're not. And you can be both, and you're allowed to feel both things. So that would be my only, but you guys do a great job of telling that story.
You're the best. We love you so much. Gianna got cut off halfway through, which stinks, but I know she is so grateful for you being here, and we are definitely having you back on.
I would love to. Anytime you guys need, and I'm day one stan of you guys.
You
guys
are
doing a
stan.
phenomenal
You
job.
are.
Oh my God. I'm like every single week I get the alert from Apple Podcasts. I'm like, ooh, my girls are talking to me again.
Oh
so
my God.
anytime you need me.